Well, good morning. And remember yesterday we said that safety is going to be a key to a great relationship. Well, how do people communicate? They have to talk to each other. And the safe conversation, it's a structured process that allows two people to talk to each other about anything, but in a safe way. All right? It doesn't mean you have to use it all the time, but if there's an issue, it takes things out of the power struggle. The power struggle tends to be, I'm right, you're wrong. And what we want to do, what I want you to do, is just to make sure you hear each other. Just make sure you hear each other and then validate. It makes sense. That's how you would see it. You don't have to agree with me, or I don't have to agree with you, but I can see how you would see it. And then the empathy is, I guess, at the feeling. So it's really a three-step process. So the first part is simply to mirror. So one person's a sender and one person's a receiver. And before the receiver can say anything, they have to mirror back to the sender's satisfaction that they've heard them correctly. All right? It's really just making sure that you hear your partner, because especially if there's a charge on something, you might only hear 70, 80% of what your partner says, which is a distortion, and your partner hears 80% of that. That's a distortion of a distortion, and pretty soon it's chaos. So, and remember, it slows things down for sure, but remember that old brain of ours, it wants to defend itself. And we have to stop that. Rather than defend, just to listen. And a good rule of thumb is if you feel defensive, it's a good time to mirror. Instead of defending yourself, just, okay, make sure, here's what I heard you say, is that correct? And your partner gets a chance to explain. So that's the first step. The second step is what we call validation. And the validation, so the receiver has heard what the sender has to say. At that point, I need him or her to say, it makes sense. That's how you'd see it, or that's what you'd say. You don't have to agree with your partner, but they're not crazy. But each of us are coming from our own background, quirks and quarks, places, whatever, where we're coming from. So we might see things quite differently than our partner does. And again, the validation takes things out of the power struggle. It doesn't make me right and you wrong. It just, here's what's going on for me. Does it make sense? That's how I see it, because two people can see something from quite different angles. And for 30 years, if I can keep people in the process, they'll sort things out. If I can get somebody to really hear and validate their partner, okay, that makes sense. And if their partner can do that for them, they'll sort it out. And what I like about it, it's not like a cookie cutter. Like what might work for a couple might not work for my wife and I. But if we keep talking, we'll figure out what'll work for us. And the third part is the empathy, which is really a guess at the feelings, what your partner was feeling at the time of whatever happened. And you might say, well, you were angry, and she might say, well, no, I was discouraged or disappointed or sad or something. All right? And obviously, it could be more than one feeling attached to any situation. So then the receiver has heard, mirrored, validated, and empathized with their partner, and then they become the sender, and their partner becomes a receiver and does the same thing. So here's the relationship tip for today, all right? Experiment with dialogue. If conflict shows up, request time to talk to each other about what triggered it, but try using the safe conversation process. It is a structured approach. It's a new skill. It'll take practice. It's like any new skill, but it guarantees that you can talk to your partner in a safe way about anything. Okay? Anyway, see you tomorrow.